Hello, and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Please hit that like and subscribe. You know how much we podcasters love those likes and subscribes. So, if you've seen me before, welcome back. So glad to see you, even though I can't see you, but you know what I'm talking about. What's up today? What's up today? Oh, well, recently, Trump fired the person in charge of labor statistics reporting because didn't like what the reporting was saying, so figured he would hire someone that would give more favorable numbers. Crazy way to operate, right? Just keeping in line with that, a little observation about an economist at Goldman Sachs said something about uh, expenses that consumers like you and me can expect in terms of pricing, that prices are going up. And Trump heard about this. He didn't like it. So he told Goldman Sachs, you need to fire that guy. Remember, if you don't like something, fire the person who's saying it, fire the messenger. All right. What else? Kim Davis. This was a young lady who worked giving out marriage licenses, and she was very famous in the news when she refused to give out a license to a gay couple. She ended up eventually going to jail for a month or two, and she was so riled up about this whole affair that she's trying to bring it to the Supreme Court that they should overrule gay marriages altogether. What an evil, ugly person. It wasn't enough that she wouldn't give out the marriage license to the persons, right? But now she wants the whole gay marriage thing wiped out. It shouldn't happen. Like, what's it to her? It doesn't mess with her life. She really wants to screw people over. Someone should pass a law saying no one named Kim Davis should have any rights to anything except, living on the streets naked. See how she likes that. All right, what's another topic? All right, Trump is going to have a meeting with Putin in Alaska about Ukraine. It might have happened already at this point, but not that I know of. And at any rate, it was funny in the news how they call it a summit, and I always used to hear that word summit, and put images in my head. Up there at the top, high level, all this stuff. And I'm thinking now that I'm much older and people who I used to think of older as somehow better, more important, more majestic, more I don't know what, I no longer think so much of. And now I hear this word some. I say, two guys getting together to talk about stuff. And especially when one of them's an obvious idiot, which, that's just to show how my changing impressions of what the president is has come about over time. Presidents just idiots. In fact, so many people now that I used to think of were somehow magically important, more knowledgeable, more grand, more I don't know what. I'm now realizing they're all idiots. Now, not all of them, but they certainly could be. And now it's got to be a person by person basis. So, any rate, they're having a summit, and news reporting about it coming up was mentioning some suggestions Trump was making about possible Ukraine land concessions, having to give up some land. All right, and this evoked a reaction from the EU, from the European Union, such that 26 signatories, 26 signing people um, signed on to the statements, minus Hungary. Interestingly enough, I would have liked to have gotten a little more into why Hungary didn't participate in this. But at any rate, they signed this letter, and it was essentially saying something to the effect of the people of Ukraine must be permitted to make their own decisions. You oh my God, the hypocrisy of this. The people of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the people of Ukraine tried to negotiate deals with Russia, and the United States and Great Britain say, no, no good, no deals, forget about it. So much for the people of Ukraine determining their own future. In fact, what's going on now? A meeting with Ukraine, with Russia and the United States. Where's Ukraine? Nowhere in there. So much for making their own decisions. Kind of really crazy. So, um, off of that, onto another thing. The Supreme Court is looking into further destroying the Voting Rights Act, which, that came about because of all the obstacles that were being placed for Black people to vote. One of the biggest is gerrymandering, where we carve out the state's districts such that Black populations essentially never get the option to vote for someone into office. And so the Supreme Court is looking to, just eliminate that. And why? Because it discriminates against white people by making a cutout for the Black people to be able to get a say. That's really that Orwellian, twisted, peace is war, love is hate kind of thing. And that's what they're looking to do. The Supreme Court is nothing but a racist. And it's funny when you can have Black people that are racist against Blacks. You've got Thomas up there on the Supreme Court. He's all for voting against this Voting Rights Act. He thinks that was the biggest insult to the Constitution ever happened. Of course, he thinks a lot of things are insults to the Constitution. Well, well. All right. So Trump's been in office over 6 months, 7 months now, getting on 8. And the wondrous things we were supposed to expect, what has happened, the latest inflation numbers, expected to go up 0.2. They went up 0.9, something like 4 times higher than it was supposed to be, the biggest jump in 3 years. So he's not doing so well there. Plus, these numbers come from a part of the economy that isn't right up front in front of the consumer. This is a little one step back at the wholesale level, where the manufacturers, the people who present us with the products, how the prices that they pay have gone up, and so when it hits us, it's going to be higher again still. And this is just the beginning, just the beginning. So they're going to go up, and they'll never go down. Except one item I've noticed will go up and down, and that's the price of gasoline. I've heard a lot of people talking about, especially when prices were higher, how it's out of control. And to me, I've been following the price of gasoline. It has remained steady in my area, because I've seen the reports for gasoline. They vary widely from area to area. California has it expensive, up at $5 a gallon. Some places have it only $1.95 a gallon. So quite a variety. But where I am, it has remained stable since I came to the Carolinas, where I am now. It has been remained stable at like 325 since I came here in '08. Those prices haven't changed. I think it's one of the most stable prices of any good on the planet. On the planet, really, it's amazing. So, what else? Trump going all dictatorial, and part of dictatorial is when he starts sending the Army, the National Guard, the Marines, when he starts sending them into the streets. You're not supposed to send these elements into the streets. In fact, there's a law was written into the Constitution recently after the Civil War, called the Posse Comitatus, and it's got that word posse, which means calling up. The sheriff calls up outside help, calls your friends and family to come help, and so that's sort of what's involved here with the government calling in the um, the army and the Air Force to start jumping into the search for the bad guy. And so the Posse Comitatus Act says that we won't do that. We won't be sending any troops, any army, any military. And this had something to do with the South was concerned that the North would send the military in to enforce the anti-slavery provisions, and they were raising raising Cain, and don't do that. And the North said, look, we'll make a law. We'll never do that. So Trump's just doing it now. And he just recently sent them down to Washington, D.C. with murmurings about Chicago will be next and this state and this city. And so he's just trying to flex his dictatorial muscles. And any rate, well, California didn't like that. They took it to court about, he violated Pasi Comitatus. And so the judge is listening to arguments. There were 3 days of arguments. This is the third day when I'm coming across it. And the judge listening to these arguments of what the administration lawyers were saying was essentially what they were saying. There's nothing you can do. Presidents are immune. Executive authority. We get to say whatever we want to say. And the judge said, I'm listening to this, and what's this all coming down to is what you're saying to me is too bad, so sad. Oh, a judge with a sense of humor. I like that. So, but I mean, this is the horror of what we're having with this administration. This is what they think. We're above the law. We can do whatever we want, and that's what we're going to do. And if anybody tries to stop us, well, it's going to be a little late because we already did it. And even if and we're going to do it again, and you won't stop us. There's nothing you can do. And that's the thing about it. The court hasn't finalized their decision, but I'm thinking, well, suppose they come down and say, yeah, the administration completely wrong. Well, then what are they going to do? I think the Posse Comitatus Act, has fines and some imprisonment. Certainly, the fines could be paid easily with a blink of an eye, but and no one's going to be in prison. Certainly not Trump. But even with that, it'll be appealed up to the Supreme Court, which will say, lower courts, you were wrong. Keep going, Trump. That's all that's going to happen there. It's a really horrible state of affairs. I was reading a comment about these lawyers, these journalists who watch these proceedings, go to these court cases, and they were saying how you have to bring a mobile printer with you. These one of those printers you can just pull out of your bag and put it on a desk, and off it goes printing. And why is that? He says, well, because so many times these bad guys, these people in front of the court, the Trump administration, the Rudy Giuliani's, they'll go out and give press conferences. They'll talk to people in the street, and they'll criminalize themselves while they're out there saying this, that, the other thing. And the lawyers have their printers; they're recording it, and they just print it out. And while the court case comes back from adjournment, they present this stuff. I mean, that's kind of the funniest thing I ever heard of. So what do we got? Another thing going on. The Department of Justice apparently doesn't like this decision that was made by a judge in the Maryland district that habeas corpus, the right to hear exactly what you're being accused of and what the evidence is something that the illegal aliens were being denied. They'd be swept up and say, wait a minute, can I even say what happened? And can I say that doesn't apply to me? That's not true. That's habeas corpus. And so there was some wiggling around with the court. Say, okay, all right, we'll allow habeas corpus that the person gets a chance to defend themselves, but they only have 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Now, they not 5 minutes, but something ridiculous, like maybe an hour. And what? That's the hour that you're in jail where they don't allow you to contact your lawyer or your family. Nobody knows you essentially been disappeared. And so, at any rate, this judge said, "Listen, we've got to have 2 days. All right, 2 days at least." Well, the Department of Justice didn't like that. And so, they're going to sue the judges. This gets to really funny business when you're going to sue the people who are in charge of processing people who get sued. Anyway, and who are they going to sue? They're going to sue every judge in the Maryland district, everyone. And this is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened. Who's going to oversee this in that district? Since they're all being sued, you have to get someone in another district. So they've, point nominated a fellow in Virginia next door in the Virginia district, and he's looking at this, scratching his head. You got to be kidding me! This is like the most horrendous thing in the world. You know, you're going to have things called depositions where people have to show all their documents about anything possibly related to this whole issue. And, how are you going to do that when judges have client, attorney privilege kind of things? And the person talking about this story was saying, yeah, the guy in Virginia is thinking, maybe he's just going to dismiss this as a totally, inappropriate, because there are other ways to go about it. You could just wait until the first case comes up where a person is requesting habeas corpus, and then let the administration, object and, make a case with this one person, not the whole Maryland district. And my opinion is, don't even think about it. Just dismiss it. And why? Because we've got nothing but corrupt GOP judges. That Aileen Cannon, who just threw out Trump's case with the documents he was holding in Mar-a-Lago based on, oh, I don't think the special prosecutor is a thing. That's totally nothing. So, I mean, that's what they do. They go on totally nothing. And the Supreme Court isn't any better, said that the president is immune, where the Constitution says nothing about that. So I think he should just dismiss it. I think we should have a Wild West, because we've already got it on the GOP side. We need to get it on the Democrat side. Wild West. All right. So last thing, Israel, which is the horror country of the earth today, with what they're doing in Gaza to everybody, and how in the West Bank too, they're doing horrible things. And now they're talking about, listen, let's wipe them all out. There shouldn't be any Palestinian anythings. Gaza, Israel should be taking it over, and also we should take over Egypt and Jordan and Syria, and that rankled the feathers of a few of the Egyptians and Syrians and Jordanians. And they made some comments, but they never do anything but make comments. And so, well, you know, most people, most countries, aren't doing anything about Israel, but there's been a rising clamor, finally, recognizing that what they're doing is horrible. I mean, it took pictures of starvation, of starving babies, in order to raise the volume. Which, when you think of it, why, when there were images of, families being burned alive with the bombs dropping, it was a horrible video that was out a while ago, and you could see the family, you could see the man's arms rising up in the flames. It was, and a little baby sitting on a couch. It was a horrible scene. I'll never forget it. Well, finally, someone's doing something. The world's biggest money fund, the Norway's sovereign wealth fund, has decided to disconnect from Israel whatsoever. Now we're talking the biggest fund. Now, it's not like the whole of Israel's economy is, it would be a dent, but finally somebody's doing something. And what's more, this particular fund, being the biggest one in the world, has a habit of initiating actions that are pretty soon followed by a lot of others afterwards. So that could have another kick in the side of Israel. Well, oh, I went through a lot of news items, so you don't have to. And now you have an idea of what's going on in the world now. I mean, I could talk about Taylor Swift, and but you don't need to hear about that. And so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you gave me a like and a subscribe, of course. Oh, and there's a bell called notify. Do that one. And forward the story to someone. Every little bit helps. Well, there you go. You have a good one. I hope to see you again. Take care.